In the medieval period, particularly within the confines of England, the daily routines of women, especially concerning their personal care, were markedly different from what one might observe in contemporary times. The concept of hygiene, as understood today, was not entirely absent, but its application and the resources available for its practice were considerably limited. Life was largely agrarian, and the majority of the population resided in rural settings, with urban centers being relatively small and often lacking in sophisticated infrastructure. This environment naturally influenced how individuals, including women, approached their cleanliness and overall well-being. The availability of water, for instance, was a primary determinant of personal hygiene practices. Water sources were typically communal, such as wells, rivers, or streams. Fetching water was a laborious task, often performed by women, and the quantity brought back to the home was usually reserved for essential needs like cooking and drinking. Consequently, water for bathing was a luxury, not a daily routine for most. When bathing did occur, it was often a communal affair, with family members sharing the same bathwater. The water would be heated, if at all, over an open fire, a process that consumed significant time and fuel. The notion of a private, individual bath with an abundance of hot water was largely unknown to the common folk. Even for the more affluent, bathing was not a daily ritual but rather an occasional indulgence. Soap, while known, was not widely manufactured or readily available in the form we recognize today. Early forms of soap were often made from animal fats and wood ash, resulting in a coarse and sometimes harsh product. Its primary use was for washing clothes, and its application to the body was less frequent. Instead, people often relied on friction and the use of rough cloths to remove dirt from their skin. The concept of scrubbing the body vigorously was more prevalent than lathering with soap. For those who could afford it, certain herbs and plants were sometimes added to bathwater to impart a pleasant scent or to provide perceived medicinal benefits. These additions were more about masking odors and soothing the skin than about deep cleansing. The practice of washing hair was also infrequent. Hair was often covered with various forms of headwear, such as wimples or veils, which served to protect it from dirt and dust. When hair was washed, it was typically with plain water, sometimes with the addition of herbal infusions. The idea of using specialized shampoos or conditioners was, of course, entirely foreign. Instead, women would often brush their hair thoroughly to remove loose dirt and tangles. This brushing was a significant part of their hair care routine, aiming to distribute natural oils and maintain a semblance of order. The overall approach to personal cleanliness was pragmatic and resource-driven. It was about managing the realities of daily life with the tools and knowledge at hand. The emphasis was on functional cleanliness rather than on aesthetic perfection. The air was often filled with the smells of wood smoke, animals, and unwashed bodies, and people were accustomed to these pervasive odors. The idea of a constantly fresh and sanitized environment was not a part of their lived experience. Despite these limitations, there was an understanding of the importance of basic cleanliness for health and comfort. People would wash their hands and faces more regularly, especially before eating. This was a practical measure to prevent the spread of disease, even if the understanding of germ theory was centuries away. The concept of personal space and individual hygiene was still developing, and the communal nature of life meant that people were in close proximity to one another, sharing resources and living conditions. The practices of the time reflected a society that was deeply connected to its natural environment and its limited technological capabilities. The rhythm of life was dictated by the seasons and the demands of agricultural labor, leaving little room for elaborate personal care rituals. The focus was on survival and sustenance, and hygiene was integrated into this broader framework in a way that was both practical and sustainable for the era. The methods employed were simple, often relying on natural remedies and traditional knowledge passed down through generations. The absence of modern conveniences meant that ingenuity and adaptation were key to maintaining any level of personal cleanliness. The daily struggle for existence often overshadowed concerns about personal appearance or elaborate beauty routines. The priorities were different, and the standards of what constituted cleanliness were adjusted to fit the prevailing circumstances. This foundational understanding of hygiene sets the stage for exploring other aspects of women's personal care in medieval England, revealing a world where resourcefulness and practicality were paramount. In medieval England, the pursuit of a desirable complexion was a significant aspect of a woman's personal care, albeit one shaped by the prevailing ideals of beauty and the limited resources available. The dominant aesthetic favored a pale, unblemished skin tone, a stark contrast to the sun-kissed complexions often admired in later periods. This preference for paleness was not merely a matter of fashion. It also served as a visual indicator of social status. A woman with fair skin was often perceived as belonging to the upper echelons of society, as her lack of sun exposure suggested a life free from manual labor in the fields. Conversely, a tanned complexion was associated with the working classes, who spent their days outdoors. To achieve and maintain this coveted paleness, women employed various methods, some of which, by modern standards, would be considered quite hazardous. One of the most well-known and indeed dangerous practices involved the use of lead-based compounds. White lead, often mixed with vinegar or other liquids, was applied to the face to create a stark white appearance. While effective in achieving the desired pallor, the long-term use of lead-based cosmetics led to severe health issues, including skin damage, hair loss, and even poisoning. The understanding of such toxic effects was, of course, rudimentary at best during this period. Beyond lead, other, less harmful substances were also utilized. Flour, particularly fine wheat flour, was a common and readily available alternative for lightening the complexion. It could be dusted onto the face to absorb oils and create a matte, pale finish. Similarly, concoctions made from the root of the Madonna lily were believed to have skin-lightening properties. These natural remedies, while perhaps less immediately effective than lead, were certainly safer. The concept of moisturizing and nourishing the skin was also present, though the methods differed significantly from contemporary practices. Animal fats, such as lard or tallow, were sometimes used as emollients to soften and protect the skin. These were often infused with herbs or flowers to mask their natural odor and to impart perceived beneficial properties. For instance, rosewater, distilled from rose petals, was a popular ingredient in many skin preparations. It was valued for its pleasant scent and its supposed soothing and toning effects on the skin. Herbal infusions and poultices were also commonly applied to address various skin concerns. Herbs like comfrey, known for its healing properties, or chamomile, for its calming effects, might be brewed into a strong tea and then used as a wash or compress. These natural remedies were often based on centuries of folk knowledge and observation, passed down through generations. The protection of the skin from the sun was another important consideration for women aiming to maintain a pale complexion. Wide-brimmed hats, veils, and other forms of headwear were not only fashion statements but also practical tools for shielding the face from the sun's rays. Women of higher social standing would also carry parasols when venturing outdoors, further emphasizing their desire to avoid tanning. The overall approach to skin care was deeply intertwined with the prevailing social and cultural norms. It was a blend of practical measures, traditional remedies, and, at times, dangerous practices driven by the pursuit of an idealized aesthetic. The understanding of skin physiology was minimal, and the efficacy of many treatments was based more on anecdotal evidence and superstition than on scientific principles. Despite the risks associated with some of these practices, the desire to conform to the beauty standards of the time was a powerful motivator. The daily ritual of attending to one's skin, however rudimentary, was a testament to the enduring human desire for self-presentation and social acceptance. The materials used were often those readily available in the natural environment or through simple domestic processes. The absence of mass-produced cosmetics meant that women, or those who assisted them, had to be resourceful in creating their own beauty aids. This self-sufficiency was a hallmark of medieval life, where most necessities were produced within the household or the local community. The focus was on maintaining a certain appearance that aligned with societal expectations, rather than on achieving perfect skin health as understood today. The pale complexion was a symbol, a visual language that communicated status and refinement in a world where such distinctions were paramount. The methods, though sometimes crude, were a reflection of the knowledge and beliefs of the era, a fascinating glimpse into the historical evolution of beauty practices and the enduring human fascination with appearance. Hair care in medieval England was a matter of both practicality and adherence to prevailing beauty standards. The ideal hair for women was generally long and often light in color, though this varied somewhat with social class and regional customs. Long hair was seen as a symbol of femininity and purity, and it was often kept covered, especially for married women, as a sign of modesty and social decorum. The methods for achieving and maintaining this ideal were, like other aspects of personal care, largely dependent on natural resources and traditional knowledge. Washing hair was not a frequent occurrence. As with body bathing, access to clean water was often limited, and the process of heating water was time-consuming. When hair was washed, it was typically with plain water, sometimes supplemented with infusions of herbs. For example, chamomile was sometimes used to lighten hair, while rosemary was believed to promote growth and add shine. These herbal rinses were not strong chemical agents, but rather gentle, natural additions intended to enhance the hair's appearance and scent. The concept of a dedicated shampoo, as we know it today, did not exist. Instead, the focus was on physical cleanliness through brushing and combing. Brushing was a crucial part of the daily hair care routine. Women would spend considerable time brushing their hair to remove dirt, dust, and tangles. This practice also helped to distribute the natural oils produced by the scalp, which served as a natural conditioner, adding a subtle sheen to the hair. Combs, often made from wood, bone, or ivory, were used to detangle and style the hair. For those with lighter hair, or those who desired it, methods of hair lightening were sometimes employed. Exposure to sunlight was a natural way to achieve lighter tones, and some women might spend time outdoors with their hair uncovered, though this was often balanced with the desire to maintain a pale complexion. More deliberate methods might involve rinsing hair with solutions containing ingredients like saffron or lye, though the latter could be quite damaging. These were not always widely practiced and were often reserved for those with the means to experiment. Hairstyles for medieval women were generally simple and functional, especially for daily wear. Long hair was often braided or coiled and then covered with a wimple, veil, or coif. These head coverings served multiple purposes. They protected the hair from dirt, kept it out of the way during work, and conformed to social expectations of modesty. For special occasions, more elaborate styles might be adopted, often involving intricate braids or decorative nets, cauls, that would hold the hair in place. The use of ribbons, pearls, or other adornments was also common, particularly among the wealthier classes. The social significance of hair was profound. Uncovered, flowing hair was often associated with unmarried women or those of lower social standing. For married women, covering the hair was a sign of their marital status and respectability. This social convention dictated much of the daily hair routine and the choice of headwear. The materials used for hair care were all natural. There were no synthetic dyes or chemical treatments. Everything from the combs to the herbal rinses was derived from the environment. This meant that the results were often subtle and varied, unlike the dramatic transformations possible with modern hair products. The overall approach to hair care was one of maintenance and protection, rather than radical alteration. The emphasis was on keeping the hair clean, tidy, and in line with the prevailing social and aesthetic norms. The routines were repetitive and often laborious, reflecting the general pace of life in medieval times. The absence of quick fixes or instant solutions meant that patience and consistent effort were key to maintaining healthy and presentable hair. The practices were deeply embedded in the daily lives of women, a quiet ritual that contributed to their overall appearance and social presentation in a world where every detail, however small, held meaning. The application of makeup and decorative cosmetics in medieval England was a nuanced practice, heavily influenced by religious doctrines, social perceptions, and the limited availability of suitable materials. Unlike some other historical periods where elaborate cosmetic routines were commonplace, the medieval era, particularly in England, often viewed overt beautification with suspicion. The church, a dominant force in daily life, frequently preached against vanity and artificial enhancements, associating them with sin and deceit. This moral stance meant that women, especially those who wished to be seen as virtuous and pious, had to navigate the world of cosmetics with considerable discretion. Despite these admonitions, the desire to enhance one's natural features was not entirely absent. The ideal of beauty, as previously discussed, leaned towards a pale complexion, often accompanied by rosy cheeks and lips, and sometimes subtly defined eyebrows. The goal was not to transform one's appearance dramatically, but rather to subtly improve upon it, making it appear as if the beauty was natural and God-given. For the cheeks and lips, natural pigments were primarily used. Berries, such as mulberries or strawberries, could be crushed to extract their juices, which would then be dabbed onto the skin to impart a faint, natural-looking flush. Similarly, certain plant roots or flowers, when processed, could yield reddish tints. These natural dyes were temporary and would often need frequent reapplication throughout the day. The effect was intended to be subtle, mimicking the healthy glow of youth or a slight blush. The use of more potent or artificial colors was generally frowned upon and associated with women of questionable reputation. Eyebrows and eyelashes were also subject to subtle enhancement. The fashion of the time often favored a high forehead, which sometimes led women to pluck their eyebrows to achieve a more arched or thinner line. For those who wished to darken or define their eyebrows, soot or finely ground charcoal could be carefully applied. Similarly, a very light touch of these same materials might be used to subtly enhance the eyelashes, though heavy application was rare and considered unseemly. The overall emphasis was on a natural, understated look. The concept of a full face of makeup, as understood in modern times, was entirely foreign. There were no foundations, concealers, or mascaras in the contemporary sense. The materials used were rudimentary, often prepared at home, and their effects were far less dramatic than those achieved with modern chemical formulations. The process of applying these natural cosmetics was often a private affair, performed away from public view. The tools were simple: fingers, small pieces of cloth, or perhaps a twig for more precise application. The knowledge of how to prepare and apply these subtle enhancements was often passed down through generations, from mother to daughter, or shared among women within a household. The social context played a crucial role in how and whether makeup was used. Women of the nobility or those attending court might have had more leeway in their cosmetic choices, as the expectations of courtly appearance sometimes converged with strict religious dictates. However, even in these circles, excessive or obvious makeup was generally avoided. For the vast majority of women, particularly those in rural areas or of lower social standing, cosmetic use was minimal to non-existent. Their lives were dominated by labor and practicality, leaving little time or inclination for elaborate beauty rituals. The focus was on functionality and survival, and any attempts at beautification were secondary to these primary concerns. The moral and religious implications of cosmetic use were a constant backdrop. Women were often reminded that true beauty came from within, from piety and good deeds, rather than from external adornment. This societal pressure, combined with the limited availability of materials and knowledge, shaped a cosmetic landscape that was far removed from the vibrant and diverse world of modern beauty products. The subtle nature of medieval makeup reflected a society that valued natural appearance and often viewed artificiality with suspicion. It was a time when beauty was often seen as a reflection of inner virtue, and any attempts to alter one's God-given appearance were approached with caution and often a degree of moral apprehension. The practices were simple, the materials natural, and the results understated, a testament to the prevailing cultural and religious norms of the era. This quiet approach to personal adornment provides a stark contrast to the more overt expressions of beauty that would emerge in later centuries. In medieval England, clothing and accessories were not merely functional necessities, but also integral components of a woman's personal presentation and, by extension, her sense of self. The way a woman dressed was a powerful form of nonverbal communication, conveying information about her social status, marital status, and even her moral standing. The care and maintenance of clothing were therefore significant aspects of a woman's daily routine, reflecting her diligence and attention to detail. The clothing of medieval women was characterized by its multi-layered nature. The innermost garment was typically a long linen shift, which served as an undergarment, protecting the outer layers from direct contact with the body. This shift was the most frequently washed item of clothing, as it absorbed sweat and dirt. Over the shift, a woman would wear a coat or kirtle, a long-sleeved, ankle-length tunic that was often fitted to the torso. Depending on the weather and the occasion, additional layers might be added, such as a surcoat, a sleeveless or short-sleeved outer tunic. The materials used for clothing varied significantly with social class. The majority of the population wore clothing made from wool, a readily available and durable fabric. Linen, derived from the flax plant, was also common, especially for undergarments and headwear. For the wealthy, more luxurious fabrics like silk, velvet, and brocade were available, often imported from distant lands at great expense. The colors of clothing were also indicative of social standing. Dyes were expensive, and certain vibrant colors, such as deep reds and purples, were reserved for the nobility and royalty. The common folk typically wore clothing in more muted, earthy tones, derived from locally available plant-based dyes. The care of clothing was a laborious and time-consuming task. Washing was done by hand, often in rivers or streams, using harsh soaps made from animal fats and lye. The process of drying and pressing clothes was equally demanding, requiring significant physical effort. Given the difficulty of laundering, clothing was not washed as frequently as it is today. Instead, airing out garments and brushing them to remove dirt were common practices. Mending and repairing clothes were also essential skills for women. Clothing was a valuable commodity, and every effort was made to extend its lifespan. Patches, darning, and other forms of repair were common, and clothing was often passed down through families or repurposed when it became too worn for its original use. Accessories played a crucial role in completing a woman's ensemble and further communicating her social identity. Belts, often made of leather or fabric, were both functional and decorative, cinching the waist and providing a place to hang small personal items like a purse or a knife. Headwear was particularly important, with a wide variety of styles available, from simple veils and wimples for married women to more elaborate hats and headdresses for the fashionable elite. Jewelry, for those who could afford it, was another way to display wealth and status. Brooches, rings, and necklaces, often made from precious metals and gemstones, were worn to adorn clothing and add a touch of elegance. However, excessive or ostentatious jewelry was often viewed with suspicion, particularly by the church, which preached against worldly vanity. The overall impression created by a woman's clothing and accessories was a carefully constructed one, reflecting her place in the social hierarchy and her adherence to the prevailing norms of modesty and decorum. The daily routine of dressing and maintaining one's wardrobe was a significant part of a woman's life, a constant reminder of her social obligations and her personal identity. The choices she made, from the fabric of her kirtle to the style of her headdress, were all part of a complex visual language that was understood and interpreted by those around her. This attention to detail, though perhaps not always driven by a desire for personal comfort, was a testament to the importance of appearance in a society where social distinctions were paramount. The quiet, repetitive tasks of washing, mending, and arranging one's attire were an integral part of the rhythm of daily life, a subtle yet powerful expression of a woman's role and her place in the world. In medieval England, the use of scents and perfumes was a practice driven more by necessity and the desire to mask unpleasant odors than by the modern concept of personal fragrance. The pervasive smells of daily life, unwashed bodies, animal waste, open sewers, and cooking fires made the air heavy and often offensive. In this environment, any pleasant aroma was highly valued, and women employed various methods to introduce agreeable scents into their immediate surroundings and onto their persons. The primary sources of fragrance were natural, aromatic herbs, flowers, and spices. These were used in a variety of ways. One common practice was the creation of sachets or pomanders. Sachets were small bags filled with dried fragrant herbs and flowers, such as lavender, rose petals, rosemary, or mint. These could be tucked into clothing, placed in linen chests, or hung in rooms to impart a subtle, lingering scent. Pomanders, on the other hand, were often more elaborate. They could be oranges studded with cloves, or decorative containers made of precious metals, filled with a mixture of aromatic substances like ambergris, musk, or civet, which were rare and expensive. These were carried by hand or worn suspended from a belt, allowing the wearer to periodically bring them to their nose to ward off foul odors. The use of essential oils extracted from plants was also known, though the distillation processes were less refined than today. These oils, often mixed with a base like olive oil or animal fat, could be applied directly to the skin or hair. Rose oil, for instance, was highly prized for its delicate scent and was often used in cosmetic preparations. Similarly, fragrant waters, such as rose water or lavender water, were used for rinsing hands and faces, or for lightly spritzing clothing and linens. These waters were produced by steeping plant materials in water, sometimes with a gentle heating process, to extract their aromatic compounds. The concept of a modern, alcohol-based perfume, with its complex layers of top, middle, and base notes, was entirely absent. The fragrances of the medieval period were simpler, more direct, and often less long-lasting. Their purpose was primarily functional, to counteract the omnipresent unpleasant smells. The application of these scents was not about creating a signature personal fragrance, but about making oneself and one's immediate environment more tolerable. For example, when entertaining guests, a household might strew fresh rushes and fragrant herbs on the floor to improve the air quality. Clothing, which was not washed frequently, could be aired out and refreshed with scented waters or by being stored with sachets. The absence of sophisticated plumbing and sanitation systems meant that personal odors were a constant challenge. While bathing was infrequent, efforts were made to maintain a degree of freshness through these aromatic means. The wealthy had access to a wider array of exotic spices and animal-derived scents, which were imported from the East. These rare ingredients were a symbol of status and luxury, further distinguishing the nobility from the common folk. For the majority of women, however, the fragrant materials were those readily available from their gardens or the local countryside. The knowledge of which plants had pleasant aromas and how to prepare them for use was part of the traditional wisdom passed down through generations. This practical approach to scent reflected the broader realities of medieval life, where resourcefulness and adaptation were key. The use of natural elements to improve sensory experiences was a small but significant part of daily existence, a quiet effort to bring a touch of pleasantness into a world that was often harsh and unrefined. The subtle waft of lavender from a woman's dress or the faint scent of rosewater on her hands would have been a welcome respite from the prevailing odors, a testament to the enduring human desire for beauty and comfort, even in the most challenging of circumstances. The rituals surrounding these simple fragrances were a quiet part of a woman's routine, a small act of self-care that contributed to her overall well-being and social presentation. In medieval England, the concepts of health and well-being were intrinsically linked with beauty, though not always in ways that align with modern understanding. A healthy appearance was often equated with a beautiful one, and women engaged in various practices, often rooted in folk medicine and traditional knowledge, to maintain their physical state. These practices were not always about curing specific ailments, but also about preserving a general sense of vitality that was considered attractive. The understanding of the human body and its functions was rudimentary. Illness was often attributed to imbalances of the four humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, or to divine displeasure, or even to malevolent spirits. Consequently, remedies were often holistic, aiming to restore balance or to appease higher powers. For women, this meant a reliance on a variety of home remedies, herbal concoctions, and dietary adjustments. Diet played a significant role in perceived health and, by extension, beauty. The availability of food varied greatly depending on social class and the season. For the majority of the population, the diet was largely based on grains, vegetables, and legumes, with meat being a less frequent addition. Eating fresh, seasonal produce was considered beneficial, and certain foods were believed to have specific properties that could influence health and appearance. For example, some herbs were thought to purify the blood, which was believed to lead to a clearer complexion. Physical activity was an inherent part of daily life for most women, particularly those in rural areas. Agricultural labor, household chores, and walking long distances were common. This constant physical exertion, while often arduous, contributed to a certain level of physical fitness. The idea of structured exercise for health or aesthetic purposes, as we understand it today, was not a concept. Instead, Physical activity was simply a part of existence, a necessity for survival and the functioning of the household. The role of local healers, often referred to as wise women, cunning folk, or midwives, was crucial in women/s health and well-being. These individuals possessed a vast knowledge of herbs, traditional remedies, and practical medical skills. They would provide advice on everything from childbirth to common ailments, and their expertise was highly valued within the community. Their treatments often involved herbal infusions, poultices, and various rituals, all aimed at restoring health and balance. The preparation of these remedies was often a domestic task, with women gathering herbs from fields and gardens, drying them, and preparing them according to traditional recipes. This knowledge was passed down orally from mother to daughter, forming an important part of a woman/s practical education. The focus was on prevention and natural healing, as access to trained physicians was limited and often reserved for the very wealthy. The concept of personal hygiene, as discussed earlier, was also intertwined with health. While frequent bathing was not common, efforts to maintain cleanliness, such as washing hands and faces, were understood to be important for preventing illness. The use of aromatic herbs and waters, while primarily for masking odors, also contributed to a sense of freshness and well-being. The challenges to health were numerous. Poor sanitation, inadequate nutrition, and the lack of effective medical treatments meant that life expectancy was considerably lower than in modern times. Childbirth was particularly perilous for women, and many did not survive it. Despite these harsh realities, women continued to strive for health and vitality, recognizing its connection to their overall appearance and their ability to fulfill their roles within the family and community. The practices were often simple, relying on the bounty of nature and the wisdom of generations. The belief in the power of natural remedies and the importance of a balanced life, as understood in their context, guided their efforts. The pursuit of health was not a separate endeavor but an integral part of daily life, woven into the fabric of their existence. The quiet, persistent efforts to maintain health were a testament to the resilience of women in medieval England, a continuous striving for well-being in a world that presented many obstacles. The connection between inner vitality and outer appearance was deeply understood, even if the scientific explanations were yet to be discovered. This enduring link between health and beauty shaped many of the daily practices and beliefs of women during this period. The perception and practice of beauty in medieval England were deeply intertwined with the social fabric and the prevailing moral and religious beliefs of the time. A woman's social status played a significant role in determining the extent to which she could engage in personal care and adornment. The lives of noblewomen, with their access to resources and leisure, differed vastly from those of peasant women, whose days were dominated by arduous labor and the struggle for subsistence. For noblewomen, the pursuit of beauty, within the confines of societal expectations, was more feasible. They had servants to assist with bathing, hair care, and dressing. They could afford more luxurious fabrics, imported cosmetics, and elaborate jewelry. Their appearance was often a reflection of their family's wealth and status, and maintaining a certain image was part of their social duty. The pale complexion, for instance, was a marker of their privileged indoor life, free from the sun's harsh rays. Their clothing, made from finer materials and dyed in richer colors, further distinguished them from the common folk. In contrast, peasant women had little time or resources for elaborate beauty routines. Their lives were dictated by the demands of agricultural work and household chores. Their hands were calloused, their skin often tanned and weathered by exposure to the elements. Their clothing was practical and durable, made from coarse wool or linen, designed for functionality rather than aesthetic appeal. Any personal care they undertook was primarily for health and basic cleanliness, rather than for enhancing their appearance in a decorative sense. The differences in their daily lives naturally led to vastly different approaches to personal care. The concept of beauty itself was often viewed through a moral lens, heavily influenced by the church. Excessive vanity or the use of artificial enhancements was frequently condemned as sinful. True beauty, according to religious teachings, was supposed to emanate from within, from piety, virtue, and a pure soul. This moral framework meant that women had to strike a delicate balance, appearing presentable and adhering to social norms without succumbing to what was considered excessive pride or deceitful artifice. The emphasis was often on natural beauty, or at least the appearance of it. Any attempts to alter one's God-given features too dramatically were met with disapproval. This societal pressure shaped the types of cosmetic practices that were deemed acceptable. Subtle enhancements, such as a light flush on the cheeks or a slightly lighter hair color, might be tolerated, but overt makeup was generally associated with women of ill repute. The transmission of knowledge about personal care was largely informal, passed down through generations. Mothers would teach their daughters about herbal remedies, hair care techniques, and the preparation of simple cosmetic concoctions. This oral tradition ensured that practical skills and traditional wisdom were preserved and disseminated within families and communities. There were also medical texts and household manuals that sometimes included recipes for beauty treatments, but these were primarily accessible to the literate elite. The social perception of beauty was also influenced by the prevailing ideals of femininity. A woman was expected to be modest, chaste, and industrious. Her beauty was often linked to her ability to fulfill her roles as a wife, mother, and homemaker. Physical attractiveness was important, but it was often secondary to moral character and practical skills. The concept of beauty was not static. It evolved over time, influenced by changing social conditions, religious interpretations, and even trade routes that brought new materials and ideas. However, throughout the medieval period, the underlying principles remained consistent. Beauty was often seen as a reflection of inner virtue, and its pursuit was tempered by the realities of daily life and the moral strictures of the age. The quiet, often unglamorous, routines of personal care were a testament to the enduring human desire for self-presentation, even in a world where resources were scarce and moral judgments were ever present. These practices, though simple by modern standards, formed an integral part of a woman's identity and her place within the complex social tapestry of medieval England. The daily efforts, however small, contributed to a sense of order and dignity in a challenging world, reflecting a deep-seated human need to care for oneself and to present a respectable image to the community. The initial thought, a simple concept, emerged from the mind of a French scholar named Edouard de Laboulaye. He was a person who held a deep respect for the United States of America. His admiration was not just for the country itself, but for the fundamental principles it represented. He believed in the ideals of freedom and liberty, concepts that were, to him, very important. It was his wish to create something, a physical representation, that would honor the bond between France and the United States. This bond was based on their shared belief in these important principles. He envisioned a monument, a large structure, that would stand as a symbol of this friendship and these shared values. This was the very beginning, the seed of an idea that would eventually grow into something much larger and more widely recognized. Laboulaye shared this nascent idea with a sculptor, a man named Frederick Auguste Bartholdi. Bartholdi was an artist, someone who worked with his hands to create large, impressive figures. He was, by nature, a person who could be moved by grand concepts, and this idea, presented by Laboulaye, resonated with him. He found inspiration in the thought of creating a monument that embodied liberty. He began to think about how such a concept could be translated into a physical form. His mind started to consider shapes, sizes, and materials. He started to sketch, to draw, to imagine what this figure of liberty might look like. This was the artistic beginning, the point where the abstract idea began to take on a more concrete visual form. The sculptor's involvement was crucial, as it was his skill that would eventually bring the idea to life. The project, though still in its early stages, began to gain some momentum. To make such a grand vision a reality, a significant amount of resources would be needed. This included money, materials, and labor. To organize the effort and to gather the necessary funds, a group was formed. This group was called the Franco-American Union. Their purpose was clear: to raise the money required to build this monument. This was a large undertaking, one that would require contributions from many people. The formation of this union marked a more formal step in the project's development, moving it from a mere idea to a structured endeavor with a clear objective. It was a sign that the project was serious, and that there was a collective will to see it through. The initial concept for the monument was to create a statue of a woman. This woman would be a representation of liberty. The choice of a female figure was deliberate, as women have often been used to symbolize abstract concepts like justice, wisdom, and freedom throughout history. This particular woman would embody the spirit of liberty, a concept that was deeply cherished by both nations. The statue was intended to be a powerful symbol, one that would be easily understood and recognized. It was hoped that this symbol would eventually become known around the world, a universal representation of freedom. The journey from this initial idea of a female figure to the final, iconic statue was a long and detailed process, involving many decisions about design, materials, and construction. Each step was carefully considered, ensuring that the final product would accurately convey the intended message. Throughout this early phase, the dedication of both Edouard de Laboulaye and Frédéric Auguste Bartholdi was evident. Laboulaye, with his initial vision and his unwavering belief in the project, provided the intellectual foundation. Bartholdi, with his artistic talent and his commitment to bringing the vision to life, provided the creative drive. Their combined efforts were essential. They faced many challenges, as any large project does. There were doubts, there were financial hurdles, and there were logistical complexities. However, their persistent efforts and their shared commitment to the ideal of liberty ensured that the project would not falter. They continued to work, to plan, and to advocate for the statue, even when the path forward was not always clear. Their dedication was a key factor in the eventual realization of the monument. Without their initial spark and their continued perseverance, the Statue of Liberty might have remained just an idea, a thought that never took physical form. Their work laid the groundwork for what would become a globally recognized symbol, a beacon of hope and freedom for many generations to come. The process was slow, deliberate, and required a great deal of patience. Each small step forward, each problem solved, brought the project closer to its ultimate goal. The early days were filled with discussions, drawings, and the gradual building of support. It was a time of laying foundations, not just for the physical structure, but for the entire endeavor. The concept of liberty, so central to the project, was something that resonated deeply with many people, providing a strong motivation for their involvement. The idea of a gift from one nation to another, celebrating shared values, was also a powerful motivator. This initial phase, though perhaps less dramatic than the later construction, was vital. It was the period when the dream was conceived and nurtured, slowly but surely taking root in the minds of those who would make it a reality. The discussions were often long and the details were many, but the core idea remained constant: a monument to liberty and friendship. This steadfastness in purpose was a defining characteristic of the project from its very beginning. The early planning involved many conversations, often over long periods, as the full scope of the undertaking became clear. The commitment to the project was not just a fleeting interest but a deep-seated belief in its importance. This foundational period set the tone for the entire construction, emphasizing careful thought and persistent effort. The initial idea, once spoken, began to take on a life of its own, drawing in others who shared the same vision. The process was organic, growing from a simple suggestion into a complex, multifaceted undertaking. The early steps were deliberate, each one building upon the last, creating a solid base for the grand structure that was yet to come. The vision was clear, even if the path to its realization was long and winding. The initial enthusiasm, combined with careful planning, ensured that the project would continue to move forward, one step at a time, towards its eventual completion. The concept of a monument to liberty was not new, but the scale and ambition of this particular project set it apart. It was a testament to the power of an idea and the dedication of those who believed in it. The early discussions were filled with hope and determination, as the future shape of the statue began to emerge from the realm of imagination into the world of possibility. The very first thoughts, the quiet conversations, were the true genesis of this enduring symbol. They were the moments when the abstract became concrete, when a dream began its slow journey towards reality. The initial spark, though small, contained within it the potential for something truly monumental. And so, the journey began, with a simple idea, a dedicated scholar, and a talented sculptor, all working towards a common goal: the creation of a lasting symbol of freedom and friendship. The design process for the Statue of Liberty was a careful and extended affair. Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, the sculptor entrusted with this significant task, did not arrive at the final design overnight. His process began with a multitude of sketches, simple lines on paper that explored the fundamental form of the statue. He drew a woman, a figure that would represent the abstract concept of liberty. He experimented with her posture, the position of her arms, and the expression on her face. These early drawings were numerous and varied, each one a small step in the long journey of design. They were the initial explorations, the first attempts to give a visual form to a powerful idea. This phase was one of trial and error, of considering different possibilities and gradually refining the concept. The sketches were not just about the overall shape, but also about the feeling the statue would evoke. It needed to be strong, yet welcoming, majestic, yet approachable. These were the qualities Bartholdi sought to capture in his initial drawings. Following the sketching phase, Bartholdi moved on to creating small models out of clay. This was a crucial step, as it allowed him to see the statue in 3 dimensions for the first time. The clay models were small enough to be held in his hands, to be turned and examined from every possible angle. He could see how the light would fall on the statue, how the shadows would play across its surface. This was something that could not be fully appreciated from a 2-dimensional sketch. The clay models allowed for a more tactile and intuitive understanding of the form. He could add a little clay here, remove a little there, constantly refining the shape. This was a slow and deliberate process, one that required a great deal of patience and a keen eye for detail. The models were not just for his own benefit, they were also used to show others the progress of the design, to get feedback, and to build support for the project. As the design became more refined, the models grew in size. From small clay figures, Bartholdi progressed to larger plaster models. These were more detailed and more substantial than the clay models. They were created in sections, each one a carefully crafted piece of the whole. The plaster models were a significant step closer to the final statue. They allowed for a more accurate representation of the final form, and they were used to create the molds for the copper plates. The creation of these large plaster models was a major undertaking in itself, requiring a large workshop and a team of skilled assistants. Each section had to be perfect, as any imperfections would be transferred to the final statue. This was a time of intense work and concentration, as the design was finalized and prepared for the next stage of construction. The choice of material for the statue was a critical decision. It needed to be a material that was strong enough to withstand the elements, yet light enough to be transported and assembled. It also needed to be a material that would age gracefully, that would develop a character of its own over time. After much consideration, copper was chosen. Copper was a good choice for several reasons. It was relatively lightweight, which would make the construction and transportation easier. It was also strong and durable, able to withstand the harsh weather of New York Harbor. And, perhaps most importantly, it would develop a natural patina over time, a greenish coating that would protect the metal from further corrosion. This patina would also give the statue its distinctive color, a color that has become synonymous with the Statue of Liberty. The decision to use copper was a practical one, but it also had an aesthetic dimension, as the changing color of the statue would become a part of its story. The immense size of the statue was another key consideration. It was intended to be a grand and imposing figure, one that would be visible from a great distance. This was important for its symbolic purpose. It needed to be a beacon, a landmark, a powerful statement. The size of the statue presented many challenges, both in terms of design and construction. Everything had to be scaled up, from the initial sketches to the final assembly. The engineering challenges were particularly daunting. The statue needed a strong internal structure to support the weight of the copper skin and to withstand the force of the wind. This was a task that required the expertise of a skilled engineer. To address this challenge, Gustav Eiffel was brought into the project. Eiffel was a renowned engineer, known for his innovative work with iron structures. He was tasked with designing the internal framework of the statue. His design was ingenious. He created a flexible iron skeleton that would support the copper skin, but also allow it to move slightly. This was a crucial innovation, as it allowed the statue to expand and contract with changes in temperature, and to sway gently in the wind without being damaged. The collaboration between Bartholdi, the artist, and Eiffel, the engineer, was a perfect example of the fusion of art and science. It was this combination of artistic vision and engineering prowess that made the construction of the Statue of Liberty possible. The design and modeling phase was a long and arduous journey, but it was a necessary one. It was a process of turning an abstract idea into a concrete plan, a blueprint for a monument that would become a global symbol of hope and freedom. Every detail was carefully considered. Every challenge was met with ingenuity and determination. The result was a design that was both beautiful and enduring, a testament to the skill and dedication of its creators. The journey from a simple sketch to a detailed plan was a story of its own, a story of creativity, innovation, and perseverance. It was the foundation upon which the Statue of Liberty was built, and it was a story that was just as important as the construction itself. The careful planning and meticulous design ensured that the statue would not only be a beautiful work of art, but also a lasting monument that would stand for generations to come. The process was slow, but it was also thorough, ensuring that every aspect of the design was just right. The final design was a culmination of years of work, a testament to the power of a shared vision and the dedication of those who worked to bring it to life. The design was not just a plan for a statue. It was a plan for a symbol that would come to represent the highest ideals of humanity. And so, with the design complete, the next phase of the project could begin, the long and arduous process of construction. The blueprint was ready, and the dream was one step closer to becoming a reality. The design phase was over, but the story of the Statue of Liberty was far from finished. It was just beginning. Raising funds for the Statue of Liberty was a significant and often difficult undertaking. The creation of such a large and meaningful monument required a substantial amount of money, and securing these funds was a process that unfolded in two distinct parts, one in France and one in the United States. Each nation faced its own set of challenges in gathering the necessary financial support, but both ultimately succeeded through persistent effort and the contributions of many individuals. In France, the responsibility for collecting money for the statue itself fell to an organization known as the Franco-American Union. This group was dedicated to the project and worked diligently to raise the required funds. They employed a variety of methods to encourage donations. One common approach was to organize events, such as lotteries, where people could purchase tickets with the hope of winning a prize, knowing that their money would go towards the statue. Another method involved the sale of souvenirs, small items related to the statue or the friendship between the two nations, which people could buy as a way of contributing and having a tangible reminder of their support. Beyond these organized events, the Union actively sought direct donations from individuals and organizations who believed in the project. This process was not quick. It was slow and required a great deal of patience and persistent effort from the committee members. Despite the challenges and the gradual pace of fundraising, the committee remained steadfast in their commitment to their goal, continuing to work towards accumulating the necessary funds to complete the statue. Across the Atlantic, in the United States, a separate committee was formed with the specific task of raising money for the statue/S pedestal. This part of the fundraising effort proved to be even more challenging than the one in France. Many Americans, perhaps understandably, questioned why they should be responsible for funding the base for a gift that was being given to them by another country. There was a perception that since the statue was a gift, its entire cost, including the foundation it would stand upon, should be covered by the givers. This sentiment made the initial fundraising campaign in the U.S. quite difficult, and progress was slow. The committee struggled to generate widespread enthusiasm and financial contributions from the general public. However, a turning point arrived with the involvement of newspapers, particularly one owned by Joseph Pulitzer, known as the New York World. Pulitzer was a prominent figure in journalism, and he recognized the potential of the statue to inspire the American people. He decided to use his newspaper as a platform to galvanize public support and raise the much-needed funds for the pedestal. He began to publish compelling articles, written in a style that appealed directly to the public sense of patriotism and national pride. These articles emphasized the importance of the statue as a symbol of liberty and the shared values between France and the United States. Pulitzer made a bold promise. He would print the name of every single donor in his newspaper, regardless of how small their contribution might be. This innovative approach proved to be incredibly effective. It tapped into a desire among ordinary citizens to be a part of something significant, to see their names recognized for their contribution to a national monument. Small donations, often just a few cents or $1, began to pour in from people from all walks of life. Children, factory workers, and small business owners all contributed what they could. These small, individual contributions, when combined, eventually accumulated into the substantial sum required to fund the construction of the pedestal. This widespread participation demonstrated the power of collective effort and the ability of a compelling message to unite people for a common cause. Beyond the newspaper campaign, various other fundraising methods were employed in the United States to gather money for the pedestal. Social events were organized, such as elaborate dinners where wealthy patrons could contribute large sums. Art exhibitions were held, showcasing works that were sometimes auctioned off, with the proceeds going towards the statue. Theatrical performances were also staged, with ticket sales contributing to the fund. These diverse approaches helped to reach different segments of the population and to generate interest and support for the project. The entire fundraising process, both in France for the statue and in the United States for its pedestal, was characterized by its length and its arduous nature. It demanded not only financial contributions but also immense creativity in devising fundraising strategies and unwavering perseverance from those leading the efforts. There were moments of doubt and frustration, but the belief in the importance of the monument kept the campaigns moving forward. Ultimately, despite all the financial hurdles and the skepticism faced along the way, the necessary funds were successfully raised. This financial success was a critical step, ensuring that both the statue, crafted in France, and its pedestal, built in America, could be completed. The overcoming of these financial obstacles transformed the initial dream of liberty and friendship, symbolized by the statue, into a tangible and enduring reality, a physical presence that would stand for generations to come. The fundraising journey itself became a part of the statue/s story, highlighting the widespread support and the collective effort that went into its creation. It was a testament to the power of a shared vision and the willingness of people to contribute to something greater than themselves. The money, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, was gathered, allowing the grand vision to move from concept to construction. The financial foundation was laid, just as the physical foundation would soon be. This phase, though focused on money, was deeply intertwined with the ideals the statue represented, as people gave what they could to support a symbol of freedom and hope. The process was a slow accumulation, a testament to the idea that many small efforts can lead to a grand achievement. The story of the fundraising is a story of community, of shared purpose, and of the belief that some things are worth investing in, not just with money, but with time and effort. The financial challenges were significant, but the determination to see the project through was even greater. And so, the funds were secured, paving the way for the next stages of the statue/s journey to its permanent home. The construction of the Statue of Liberty began in France, specifically in a large and bustling workshop located in Paris. This was not a small undertaking. It was a massive project that required the skills of many dedicated individuals. The process involved a team of highly skilled craftsmen, each one an expert in their particular trade. Their main task was to work with large sheets of copper, transforming this raw material into the intricate and detailed forms that would make up the statue. This was done by carefully hammering the copper sheets over specially prepared wooden molds. These molds were precise replicas of the statue/s various parts, ensuring that each piece of copper would take on the exact shape required. This method of construction was known as repoussé, a technique that involves shaping metal by hammering on the reverse side to create a design in relief. It was a slow and incredibly precise process. Each individual piece of copper had to be worked with great care and attention to detail. The goal was to ensure that every single piece would fit perfectly with all the other pieces, like a giant, complex puzzle. Any slight misalignment or imperfection could cause problems later on during the assembly of the entire statue. The craftsmen worked diligently, day after day, shaping the metal with their hammers, listening to the rhythmic sounds of their work filling the large workshop. The statue was not built as a single monolithic unit. Instead, it was constructed in many separate sections. This modular approach was necessary due to the statue/'s immense size, which would have made it impossible to transport in one piece. The construction began with the smaller, more manageable parts, gradually moving to the larger and more complex sections. For example, the head of the statue was one of the first major components to be completed. Then came the arm that would eventually hold the torch, a significant and highly visible part of the monument. Finally, the various sections that would form the body of the statue were meticulously crafted. Each of these sections, even individually, represented a significant undertaking, requiring many hours of labor and careful craftsmanship. Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, the sculptor who conceived the statue/'s design, was not merely an artist who provided a drawing and then stepped away. He was deeply involved in the entire construction process. He closely supervised every stage of the work, from the initial hammering of the copper sheets to the final assembly of the sections. His presence in the workshop was constant, and he meticulously ensured that every detail adhered precisely to his original design. He would inspect the work, offer guidance, and make sure that the vision he had for the statue was being faithfully executed. His presence in the workshop was constant, and he meticulously ensured that every detail adhered precisely to his original design. He would inspect the work, offer guidance, and make sure that the vision he had for the statue was being faithfully executed. His dedication and passion for the project were evident in the careful workmanship displayed by the craftsmen. He was not just a supervisor. He was a driving force, inspiring those around him with his commitment to the monumental task. The construction of the statue in France continued for many years. It was a long and arduous journey, marked by countless hours of labor and unwavering commitment. This extended period of construction stands as a testament to the hard work and perseverance of everyone involved, from the individual craftsmen shaping the copper to the engineers designing the internal structure, and of course, Bartholdi himself. Slowly but surely, piece by piece, the statue began to take its magnificent shape. What had once been merely an idea, a concept in the mind of a scholar and an artist, was gradually transforming into a tangible physical form. The workshop in Paris became a hub of activity, a place where a dream was being meticulously built, piece by painstaking piece. This monumental effort in France was an absolutely crucial step in bringing the symbol of liberty to life. It was here that the raw materials were shaped, the intricate details were formed, and the various components were prepared for their long journey across the ocean. The work done in France laid the essential groundwork, ensuring that when the time came for assembly in its new home, all the pieces would be ready to form the iconic monument that would stand as a beacon of freedom for generations to come. The process was a slow dance between artistic vision and practical execution, each step dependent on the precision and skill of the previous one. The hammering, the shaping, the fitting, all contributed to the gradual emergence of a masterpiece. The air in the workshop was filled with the sounds of creation, the metallic ring of hammers on copper, the quiet discussions among the craftsmen, and the occasional instructions from Bartholdi. It was a place of intense focus and shared purpose, where the collective effort of many hands brought a grand vision closer to reality. The construction was not just about building a statue, it was about building a symbol that would come to represent the highest ideals of humanity. And every day, as the copper skin grew, that message became more and more visible. The work was a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance, a grand project undertaken with a clear purpose and a deep belief in its ultimate significance. The years passed, but the dedication remained, culminating in the creation of a monument that would transcend its physical form and become an enduring emblem of liberty and friendship across the world. The careful planning and execution in France ensured that the statue would be not only beautiful but also structurally sound, capable of standing tall for centuries. This phase was a triumph of engineering and artistry, a true collaboration that resulted in one of the world /s most recognizable landmarks. The journey of the Statue of Liberty, from its conceptualization to its physical realization, was a long and winding road, but each step, especially the construction in France, was vital to its eventual success. The Parisian workshop was more than just a place of construction. It was a crucible where an idea was forged into reality, piece by painstaking piece, until the magnificent form of Lady Liberty began to emerge, ready for her transatlantic voyage and her ultimate destiny as a symbol of hope and freedom. After its completion in Paris, the Statue of Liberty was a magnificent sight. It stood tall, a testament to the vision of its creators and the skill of its builders. However, its journey was far from over. The statue was too large to be transported across the Atlantic Ocean in one piece. Therefore, it had to be carefully disassembled into many smaller components. This was a painstaking process, as each piece had to be meticulously catalogued and packed to ensure its safe passage. The statue was then loaded onto a French naval transport ship, the Isère, for its voyage to the United States. The journey across the ocean was long and uneventful, but filled with anticipation. Upon its arrival in New York Harbor, the ship was met with great excitement. The disassembled pieces of the statue were then transported to Bedloe's Island, which would eventually be renamed Liberty Island. This was a crucial step, as the island was to be the statue's permanent home. The arrival of the statue's components marked the beginning of the final phase of the project, its reassembly and erection on American soil. The journey from Paris to New York was not just a physical one. It was a symbolic passage, bringing the ideals of liberty and friendship to a new continent. The statue, though in pieces, carried with it the hopes and dreams of many, ready to be reassembled into a beacon of freedom for all to see. The careful planning and execution of this transportation phase were essential to the success of the entire project, ensuring that the magnificent work of art would reach its destination safely and be ready for its grand unveiling. The arrival of the Isère in New York Harbor was a moment of great celebration, a clear sign that the long-awaited monument was finally here, ready to take its place in history. The process of disassembling and transporting the statue was a complex logistical challenge, but it was executed with precision and care, reflecting the immense importance of the cargo. Each crate held a piece of history, a fragment of a dream that was soon to become a reality. The journey was a testament to the collaborative spirit between France and the United States, a shared endeavor that transcended geographical boundaries. The statue's voyage was a quiet but significant chapter in its story, a prelude to its grand unveiling and its enduring legacy as a symbol of freedom and democracy. The careful handling of each component ensured that the statue would arrive in perfect condition, ready to be reassembled and stand tall as a testament to international friendship and shared ideals. The sea journey was a period of waiting, of anticipation, as the pieces of the future icon made their way across the vast ocean, bringing with them the promise of a new symbol for a new world. The arrival was not just a delivery. It was a homecoming, a moment when the dream began to truly take root in its destined location. The disassembling and shipping were as much a part of the statue's narrative as its creation and assembly, each step a vital link in the chain of its remarkable history. The voyage was a quiet testament to the immense effort and planning that went into every stage of the project, ensuring that the statue would eventually stand proudly in its new home, a beacon of hope and inspiration for generations to come. The journey was long, but the destination was worth the wait, as the pieces of the Statue of Liberty finally arrived, ready to be united into a symbol that would forever grace the shores of America. The anticipation built with each passing day, until finally, the ship carrying the precious cargo docked, marking a pivotal moment in the statue's long and storied history. The careful preparation for the journey ensured that the statue, though in many parts, would arrive safely and be ready for its final transformation into a unified and majestic symbol of liberty. The voyage was a testament to the meticulous planning and dedication of all involved, ensuring that the statue's journey was as successful as its creation. The arrival of the ship was a cause for celebration, a clear indication that the dream was now within reach, ready to be realized on American soil. The pieces of the statue, once scattered, were now together, poised for their grand reassembly and their eternal vigil over New York Harbor. The journey was complete, and the stage was set for the final act of this monumental undertaking. The pedestal for the Statue of Liberty was a crucial component of the entire project. It was not just a simple base. It was a carefully designed and constructed foundation that would support the immense weight of the statue and elevate it to its intended height. The location chosen for this important structure was Bedloe/S Island, a small piece of land situated in New York Harbor. This island was selected for its strategic position, offering a prominent and visible spot for the statue to stand as a welcoming symbol to all who arrived in the United States. The design of the pedestal was a collaborative effort, much like the statue itself. The initial architectural plans were drawn up by an American architect named Richard Morris Hunt. His design was intended to complement the statue, providing a strong and dignified base without overshadowing the main work of art. The pedestal was designed to be a substantial structure, built from concrete and granite. These materials were chosen for their strength and durability, ensuring that the pedestal would be able to withstand the elements and the passage of time. The construction of the pedestal was a significant engineering feat in itself, requiring a deep foundation to support the massive weight it would bear. The construction of the pedestal faced several challenges, primarily related to funding. As mentioned earlier, raising money for the pedestal proved to be more difficult than raising money for the statue itself. This was due to various reasons, including public skepticism about why Americans should pay for the base of a gift. Despite these financial hurdles, the work eventually began. The process involved laying a massive concrete foundation, which was then covered with granite blocks. These blocks were carefully cut and fitted together, forming the sturdy walls of the pedestal. The construction was slow and deliberate, as each layer had to be precisely placed to ensure the stability and integrity of the entire structure. One of the most significant aspects of the pedestal/S construction was the involvement of General Charles P. Stone. He was an American engineer and a former Union Army officer, and he was appointed as the chief engineer for the pedestal project. Stone/S role was critical in overseeing the construction and ensuring that the engineering aspects were sound. He brought his military precision and engineering expertise to the project, managing the complex logistics of materials and labor. His leadership was instrumental in overcoming the challenges faced during the construction phase, and he played a vital role in bringing the pedestal to completion. The pedestal was designed not only for structural support but also to house various facilities. Inside the pedestal, there were spaces for offices, a museum, and observation decks. These areas were intended to provide visitors with an opportunity to learn about the statue/S history and to enjoy panoramic views of New York Harbor. The inclusion of these facilities made the pedestal more than just a base. It made it an integral part of the visitor experience, adding to the educational and recreational value of the monument. The construction of the pedestal was a long and arduous process, but it was a necessary one. Without a strong and stable base, the Statue of Liberty could not have stood tall in New York Harbor. The completion of the pedestal marked a significant milestone in the overall project, signaling that the site was finally ready to receive the statue itself. It was a testament to the perseverance of those involved, who worked tirelessly to overcome financial and logistical obstacles to ensure that the foundation for this iconic symbol of liberty was firmly in place. The pedestal, though often overlooked in favor of the statue it supports, is an equally important part of the monument/S story, representing the American contribution to this grand gift of friendship. Its construction was a story of its own, a story of engineering, fundraising, and the determination to provide a fitting home for a symbol of freedom. The careful planning and execution of the pedestal/S construction ensured that it would not only serve its practical purpose but also stand as a monument in its own right, a testament to the enduring spirit of collaboration and the shared ideals that brought the Statue of Liberty to life. The pedestal was more than just a foundation. It was a symbol of American commitment, a solid base upon which the ideals of liberty and democracy could stand tall for generations to come. The process was slow, but every stone laid, every layer added, brought the project closer to its ultimate goal, ensuring that the Statue of Liberty would have a secure and dignified home in the heart of New York Harbor. The completion of the pedestal was a moment of quiet triumph, a silent promise that the grand vision was soon to be fully realized. With the pedestal ready on Bedloe /S Island, the stage was set for the final and most anticipated phase of the Statue of Liberty project, the reassembly and erection of the statue itself. This was a monumental task, requiring careful planning, precise execution, and the coordination of many skilled workers. The disassembled pieces of the statue, which had arrived from France in over 200 crates, now had to be put back together, piece by painstaking piece, to form the iconic monument we know today. The reassembly process began with the internal iron framework, designed by Gustave Eiffel. This intricate skeleton was the backbone of the statue, providing the necessary support for its copper skin. Workers meticulously bolted and riveted the iron beams together, following Eiffel /S detailed plans. As the framework rose, it began to give a sense of the statue /S immense scale. Once the internal structure was in place, the copper sections of the statue were carefully lifted and attached to the framework. This was a delicate operation, as each copper piece had to be precisely aligned and secured. The workers used scaffolding to reach the higher sections, slowly building up the statue from its base. The process was like assembling a giant, three-dimensional puzzle, with each piece fitting perfectly into its designated spot. One of the most challenging aspects of the reassembly was working at height. As the statue grew taller, the workers had to contend with strong winds and the dizzying heights. Safety measures were in place, but the work remained inherently dangerous. Despite these challenges, the workers persevered, driven by the knowledge that they were building a symbol of freedom and hope. The construction site on Bedloe /S Island became a hive of activity, with the sounds of hammering, riveting, and the shouts of workers filling the air. Visitors would often come to the island to witness the progress, marveling at the gradual emergence of the colossal figure. The reassembly process took several months. Slowly but surely, the statue began to take its familiar form. The body sections were attached, then the arm holding the torch, and finally the head with its distinctive crown. Each completed section was a cause for celebration, a visible sign of progress towards the grand unveiling. The final touches involved securing all the copper plates, ensuring that the statue was structurally sound and ready to withstand the elements for centuries to come. The work was not just about physical construction. It was about bringing a dream to life, transforming individual pieces into a unified and powerful symbol. On October 28, 1886, the Statue of Liberty was officially dedicated. This was a day of immense celebration in New York City. A grand parade was held, with thousands of people lining the streets to witness the historic event. Boats filled New York Harbor, their horns blaring in salute to the newly completed monument. Dignitaries from both France and the United States were present, including President Grover Cleveland, who formally accepted the statue on behalf of the American people. Speeches were given, emphasizing the enduring friendship between the two nations and the ideals of liberty and democracy that the statue represented. The weather on dedication day was not ideal. It was foggy and rainy, which obscured the view of the statue for many. However, this did not dampen the spirits of the crowd. The unveiling of the statue, with a large French flag draped over its face, was the highlight of the ceremony. As the flag was pulled away, revealing the majestic figure, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. The Statue of Liberty, now fully assembled and standing proudly on its pedestal, was finally ready to fulfill its purpose as a beacon of hope and a symbol of freedom for all who saw her. The dedication ceremony marked the culmination of years of effort, fundraising, and construction, a testament to the perseverance and shared vision of countless individuals. It was a moment that etched itself into the history of both nations, a lasting symbol of their bond and their commitment to the ideals of liberty. The statue, now complete, stood as a silent guardian, welcoming immigrants and inspiring generations with its message of freedom and opportunity. The journey was long, but the destination was worth the wait, as the Statue of Liberty took its rightful place as one of the world/S most recognizable and beloved landmarks. The Statue of Liberty stands today, a familiar sight in New York Harbor. It has been there for many years, observing the passage of time and the changes in the world around it. It has seen many events, both large and small, and has remained a constant presence. It is a quiet observer, always there, always watching. The statue has become a part of the landscape, a part of the city, and a part of the country. It is a symbol that many people recognize, and it holds a certain meaning for them. It represents ideas that are important to many, such as freedom and the possibility of new beginnings. For many who arrived in this country, the statue was one of the first things they saw. It was a sign that they had reached their destination, a place where they hoped to find a better life. The statue has also gained recognition around the world. It is known in many places as a representation of certain values. It reminds people of the idea of freedom and the hope for a peaceful world. It is a symbol that can be understood by people from different backgrounds, speaking a common language of aspiration. Over the years, the statue has undergone maintenance and repairs. It has been cleaned and strengthened to ensure its continued existence. These efforts have been carried out by individuals who understand the importance of the statue and its place in history. The statue continues to be a place that many people visit. They come to see it, to learn about its past, and to experience its presence. It is a place that can evoke a sense of calm and contemplation. The story of the Statue of Liberty is a long one, beginning with a simple idea and growing into a widely recognized symbol. It is a story of cooperation and the realization of a vision. It is a story that continues to be shared, and it will likely continue to be shared for a long time to come. As long as certain ideas remain important, the Statue of Liberty will likely remain a visible reminder of them. It stands as a steady light, a quiet presence, and a continuous reminder of enduring concepts. The story of the Statue of Liberty is now complete in this telling. Its presence, however, continues on, day after day, year after year, a silent and unchanging fixture in the harbor. It is simply there, and it will continue to be there for the foreseeable future. The story has been told, and the statue remains.